Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies.
Welcome back to the Startup of the Year podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, the co-founder and co-CEO of Established, co-founder of Established Ventures, and the team behind the Startup of the Year community and this very podcast. Thank you so much for being here. On this episode, I've got my co-founder and co-CEO, Jen Consalvo, and we're going to talk to a bunch of investors. Basically, going to talk about what's going on in the current state of investment and what to look forward to as we go into 2023. So excited about the conversation. The conversation actually was part of a discussion at our recent pitch event we hosted, where we had 5 of our companies from our Startup of the Year community all pitch for additional exposure and some prizes, and fast track to our summit, which is coming up next year, and additional feedback as well from some investors. So the companies that participated were all amazing, all 5 of them, and they came from all over edges of the country, but also a lot from the South, actually. So we had Arise from New York. We had Every Key from Cleveland, Ohio. Hello Helper from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Shamrock came out of St. Petersburg, Florida, and Storybook app out of Miami, Florida. All did amazing jobs. I don't want to spoil the ending for you. If you want to go check out who's winning or who won that competition, you can check out the whole thing on our YouTube over at the Established YouTube channel and watch the pitches. They're really great and a great conversation with the judges. So go check that out. And oh heck, I'll tell you, we had a People's Choice going on for a while and led up to the event. And the People's Choice winner for that particular event was Storybook app out of Miami, Florida. So check out the Storybook app. It's really interesting if you've got a child or maybe a niece or nephew. And it's a great way to, when you're going to sleep, to kind of get them more relaxed so they can go to sleep better and sleep longer. So great stuff there. And then also, we actually named the winner of that particular event, got fast tracked. They won a golden microphone. I think it's golden plated. I don't actually think it's solid gold. And they got a chance to get additional exposure. And that company that did get those judges excited the most, although all did very well, was Every Key out of Cleveland, Ohio. So Every Key will be joining us at our summit. And they're doing great stuff. But I should mention all 5 companies are pretty amazing. You should check them all out in the show notes and over on their own personal sites. Just take a look for them. All right, let's dive into this conversation, though. We've got 3 investors. That was 5 startups. 3 investors, and the investors include Rich Maloy, who's a former colleague of ours. He used to be part of the Established team. He's now a managing partner over at Springtime Ventures. And he had a career in finance and sales, and it led him to, venture, which ultimately is helping him with his mission, which is rebuilding the American dream through entrepreneurship. He focuses on working with early stage companies and investing in them as well. Really excited to have Rich back and sharing his insights. We have Monique Idlett-Mosley, who's the founder and general partner over at Rain Venture Capital, which is an early stage investment firm that focuses on women and minority-led companies, both of which we are obviously very excited about, want to get more venture into their hands. So love having her involved here in this discussion. And then she's also got an interesting background. She came from the music industry, where she was the CEO of Mosley Music Brands and Mosley Music Group, which basically had an amazing roster of artists. Timbaland and Nelly Furtado, One Republic, and many more were part of that label and group. So really exciting to see her and have her share her kind of correlation between what it's like being in the music industry and like what it's like to do VC. Last but not least, we have Peter Alemis. He's actually the founder and general partner at Alemis Ventures, and he's got a background in dental care, actually, which is interesting. He actually helped with building the largest private dental group in Chicago. And prior to that was part of an investment banker world. So he was over at RBC capital markets over in New York. So really diverse background there, but is now investing in early stage companies. And we're excited to have him in this discussion as well. So before we dive in, though, I wanted to shine a light on a company in our community. We do that every episode on the Start of the Year podcast. We decided this week it should be one of the companies that participated recently in our pitch event, and that company is Halo Helper out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. They're a peer-to-peer marketplace increasing accessibility, inclusivity, and cost efficiency for on-demand services or work. The platform provides access to all types of local workers. And if you want to learn more about it, go over to Join Hallow, so JOIN and then HALLO.com. JoinHallow.com and learn more today. All right, now let's jump into that investor conversation with Rich, Monique, Peter, Jen Consalvo, and myself. Let's go. We're going to quickly go around the horn here. We didn't get a chance at the beginning to kind of hear a little bit more about our judges. So please tell us a little bit more about the types of companies you invest in, what your firms are looking for, and a little bit more about what each of you does look for when you're looking for companies. And we'll start again, Monique, then Peter, and then Rich.
Thank you. So myself and Erica, we own Rain Ventures, and we do specialize in consumer tech and SaaS. We are seed stage investors, and we typically lead over half of our investments. We find ourselves, we deem ourselves pretty founder friendly and supportive. As I mentioned before, taking my experience and kind of like creating like this nice safety net for the artists in the music industry that we had, and kind of taking that same perspective with the talented, exceptional founders and just giving them the support that they need at this vulnerable stage.
That makes sense. And just to kind of define that a little bit more, if folks maybe just joined, tell us a little bit more about your background and what you meant by the music side of what you were doing.
Yeah, so I had my career in my 20s and built a music label and a publishing company with my ex-husband. And we definitely had this concept of fewer artists and kind of the platinum concept. And that's how Eric and I invest, right? Fewer investments, not kind of the spray and pray that had been put out there previously, and just really give them the support, the access. Founders need access to resources. They need access to network, relationships, and sometimes just advisor perspective. And so we try to provide all of those added value outside of just the actual check.
Great. That makes sense. All right. Peter, go ahead. Share a little bit more about what you're doing and what you're looking for.
Thank you, Frank. So I guess just by way of background, our family business was one of the largest dental companies in the Midwest, and we built our family office around that. And we initially started investing in dental tech just by nature of the business. And then that led us into co-investing with other family offices and essentially just investing in early stage businesses, seed being the sweet spot. But we've done Series A, we've done pre-seed. And our thesis has sort of been around investing first and foremost in amazing founders, but underlying that is investing in industries that are maybe don't get enough VC investment as they should. We've invested in trucking and logistics, prop tech, like I said, dental, and we're always looking for great deals. We're US focused, so we don't really look outside the US, and pretty industry agnostic.
Okay. Makes sense. Monique, do you look outside the US?
No, Eric and I focus in the United States, and we pretty much have invested everywhere except for Silicon Valley.
Great. Excellent. All right. Last but not least, Rich, Maloy.
So Springtime Ventures is a seed stage fund. We're based in Colorado. We also only invest in the US, and we just closed our second fund, and with our second fund, we dialed in our focus areas from our first fund. So we specifically are investing at the seed stage for fintech and insurtech, healthcare, logistics and supply chain, and marketplaces. And really, we've picked these sectors because we realize we've surrounded ourselves with experts, industry experts, that not only can they help us better understand the startups that we're looking at, but then they can actually be value add to those startups starting from the very beginning. And so we usually bring in our advisors, many of them that are also LPs. We'll bring those folks into the due diligence process. And oftentimes when there's a good fit, then they end up supporting or maybe even mentoring those companies along the way on their journey.
Awesome. I'd love to hear more from each of you about what you're specifically looking for in founders and teams, especially at that early stage.
And by the way, Monique, I think it was you had such great questions, and so I think it was great that you were always going first, because I'll cross that question off my list. So those are excellent questions for sure. We have really started to go back to better understanding the founders and their motivations before we invest in them, and we have found that it's such a trope to say that mediocre investor, great market wins, great investor, mediocre market, founder wins, or however you want to phrase that. But we really truly believe that a great founder makes all the difference. And so you might have a very, not a great problem that's being solved, or maybe you're not super excited about the way that's going, or that any problems that come up, that founder is going to find a way to push through. So we dig in a lot on founder motivations. We dig in a lot on why this problem for them. And we dig in a lot on, we love to see industry expertise, or at least some background. And if you don't have the industry expertise, can you demonstrate that you have learned this industry and can talk about it inside and out? And then leverage that to why you're an unstoppable founder. Because let's face it, it is so hard starting a business and building a company. And then not only are you going to start a business and build a business and grow it, but then you're expected to scale it. And the CEO that you have to be with just you and your co-founder is different than the one with 5 employees, than the one with 50 employees, and the one with 500 employees. Those are all completely different people. And so can that founder evolve and continually evolve into those pieces? It's hard to say, it's hard to know, but we do dig in a lot on the founder and their motivations.
Great. Awesome. Peter.
Well, I'll caveat this by saying this is Peter's opinion and my experience, right? So I think first and foremost, we've had the most success with founders where they've, for lack of a better word, they've burnt all previous ships. Like, this is their baby and this is what they're doing. When we've had founders and invested in founders that are like, I'm just doing this on the side, or I have a couple other businesses, or I'm employed somewhere else. For me personally, I've never seen it go well. Like one of our recent investments, like our founder is like, he has 3 kids, this is what he does, like 20 hours a day. This is like, it's like do or die. So for us, we have had the most success with founders where they've made it their life's duty to do this and see, their business to succeed. So first and foremost, I think that goes without saying. Like, when we look at an investment, that sort of check the box has to be in. I think second, he or she really need to be, a people person. They have, they're going to be the face of the company. And as we keep growing and raising, they need to be able to deal with all sorts of people. So if they sort of like are closed-minded or they don't want to interact, I think that sort of needs to be changed a little bit, because they're going to be the face of the company. And that's, we're investing in a company where that founder, he or she, has to be the face of it. And then I think the third thing is kind of towards Rich's point. They have to be so ingrained in that industry where they have found something or some dislocation in the industry that they are looking to take advantage of. And it's not this like very glib, like, superficial. No, they know the industry is so cold that they figured out this is why we're going to succeed. So I think those are like our 3 like fundamental points.
The last one, you mean like a seam, like they found something that's like they could, take advantage of?
That's right.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, Monique, go ahead.
So everything that Peter and Rich said, and, what I would add is that clearly, like the traditional due diligence, right? The product market fit, the founder team fit. one of the things that I kind of specialize in and really pay attention to outside of kind of like that gut factor when it comes to a founder is the coachability of a founder, right? Yeah. Also, we take time, we start early with founders. We're like in that founder community when they're still just possibly thinking about angels, and we're taking the time to get to know them. We're seeing how flexible they are with the evolution of their business and also their team, including their self and their personal growth. How do they deal with adversity? What is their public image? What are the things that they're prioritizing? I actually don't think that we talk enough about this, is that you are the representation of the business model. And at such an early stage, you may not have the financials to prove. So what we're investing is actually the founding team. Also, one of the things that's really big for us at Rain Ventures is the honesty and the transparency when it comes to the yellow flags, so that it doesn't get to a red flag. And so we like to put a lot of effort into the relationship side. So clearly all the traditional due diligence, but coachability is something that's really important, and not so much from the investor side, but whoever may be the expert or the advisors that really need to help you scale your company model.
Great. And just to follow up on that real quick, and we can do it real briefly, the yellow flags, how do you create that ability for them to communicate those red yellow flags without, them feeling like, oh gosh, they're going to, I've always got another round coming or whatever. Is this going to
right? You usually see so many entrepreneurs trying to hide things, showing like, nope, I've got it all under control.
We're good, right? We're good. And then they tank, or whatever.
So remember, coming from almost 30 years in the music industry, right? Yeah. It was my job to get to know the talent, to be able to understand their body language, to be able to create a safe space for them, right? I'm not here to be authoritative. And I think that, with all due respect, the VC world is a very intimidating world, right? It's a very testosterone driven, model. And that doesn't really leave a lot of room of conversation and communication. So one of the things that I saw as when I started investing was there needed to be a safe space for founders that was more like a tough love. But if we can't really know what the problems are, how as advisors and investors do we actually create a place where they can actually solve the problem? So I think that, how we create that is actually being honest with them as to what type of investor we are. But more importantly, we're able to give them 10.5 years of Eric and I investing together to speak to all of the founders that we actually have invested in. And more importantly, the ones that we actually haven't given financial capital to, but still created a safe space for them.
Great. That makes sense. All right.
There's one thing that Monique, I would love to debate with you, because we've actually found coachability as a negative trait. And so we've found that founders that are overly coachable tend to waffle and can't stick to a long-term, can't stick to a strategy and are less capable decision makers. Right. And now, the far other extreme is somebody that it's their way or the highway. And that's not somebody that you can invest in either. And so, I'm just curious about the middle ground there, like threading the needle, right, between somebody that knows when to ask for advice and knows when to seek advice, knows when to seek counsel, but also then can make a decision and go fast in that direction. Right. And doesn't have to stand around and ask 16 people. And so coachability has been a flag for us.
So, I'll say this, Rich. I started my career at 22 as the youngest executive at a number one company. And I'm here to tell you that all of those C-suites were getting advised every second of the day when it came to big problems. Okay. And so when we talk about coachability at Rain Ventures, they've already met all of the due diligence. Okay. So they have checkbox as something that we are willing to invest in. And what we mean by coachability is that when you are in need of advice or you're in need of a sounding board, you feel comfortable not just going to your team, but also to your advisors and to your investors. So to say that, like, they have to meet the due diligence first. So thank you for allowing me to clarify that, because that's actually what we mean by that. No, we've never invested in any founder that we deem needs to have to ask a question for every type of leadership decision. So that's not even the bucket for us, because we actually would not invest in that team. But it is important to us as lead investors in particular. We have a responsibility and accountability to our co-investors to make sure that we're paying attention to the company and keeping them abreast as well as investors. And so we like to make sure that the leading teams are teams that answer our phone calls if we have a question, or will pick up the phone if they have a question.
I love that. Thanks for
So
that.
thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because, so many times coachability is, comes across as this really soft, mushy, the founder is going to listen to what I have to say, and they're going to, they're going to do what their advisors tell them. But it's,
I have to tell you, it's very interesting to me, this world that I came into 10 and a half years ago, with this idea that amazing, exceptional founders are supposed to know everything. When in fact, at almost 50 years old, I like to say I actually know nothing. And I like to sit in that student space. And so I do think that we have an obligation at this pre-seed and seed stage to really create an environment that they're free thinkers and it's accepted, and that they're allowed to kind of test and learn the lessons quickly and then adjust and pivot. So that's what the coachability means to me, the flexibility to evolve, especially when things like what COVID happened, right? All of our founders in our portfolio were coachable because they pivoted in that moment. When others were panicking, they pivoted, and our companies actually came out stronger during COVID. So I think that, I guess from a term perspective, it can be used differently. But I do think that at the seed stage, we have an obligation to be more of a supporter versus a critic, so to speak.
Nice.
That makes sense. All right, we'll switch gears here a little bit onto the next kind of question. And I love the debate, so keep it up. If you have counterpoints or want to clarify anything, please do jump in. So when companies are trying to find you or get connected with you, what are some of the most important metrics that you see, whether it be in email or pitch deck, or how do you like to be, I guess, reached out to kind of have that first interaction? And I guess, how important is that pitch deck to begin with, even for you all now? Who wants to jump in?
I'll
go ahead, Peter.
Here. So I guess two things. One, I would rather a pitch deck is important, and I would rather have an email be very concise versus like a 20 paragraph. We haven't even spoken yet. One thing that is important to us is if you're pre-revenue, at least let us know. Like, don't make me dig to find out you're pre-revenue. I'd rather find that out, because we prefer revenue, but we can do pre-revenue. But I think a lot of founders that I've seen that are pre-revenue tend to not, mention that from the outset, and they'll just sort of focus on, which is fine, but at least make it known, hey, we're pre-revenue. This is sort of the model right now. We're raising a pre-seed. I think that's more enticing than trying to make things look better. But in terms of metrics, when you're that early, it's like projections are a little useless. You're so early. And I just feel like the main thing is that we'd like to see is, hey, here's the idea. Here are competitors. This is what we're raising at, X valuation. This is our CAC. This is our revenue, if we have revenue, our sales so far. Just very simple, high level items. Because when you're investing that early, at least for us, the main thing we're looking for is how is the founder, and how is the idea? Because that's what you're really essentially betting on.
Yeah, founder and idea. I like that. Who else wants to weigh in on this?
I would also add that, we're also, like, when it comes to the pitch deck, so to speak, it's for me, it's more about, did you get like, I like a straightforward type of conversation. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's what our competitive advantage is and why we're going to capture this addressable market. And here's our team that's going to do it. Right. And so I think when you're able to tell that story quickly in a deck, we love the decks. But founders reach out to us all ways: social media, LinkedIn, Instagram. I respond to everything. But we do have like a formal process once we actually, every Friday we have Founder Fridays. And all day long, we're doing 30-minute increments with founders from all over that are just talking to us, pitching us, so we try to keep like a consistency, but then also we're in the events, we're in the founder community, we try to do as much as we can to engage them. And I like a good conversation. I like to know that the founder knows exactly what they're doing. When I've had an hour-long conversation and I have walked away and I still don't understand what the company is, we never have invested in that. So I like for founders to know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it.
That makes sense.
For Springtime, so for starters, how startups can find us is, first of all, they can just go to springtimeventures.com, and on there is a pitch us form. We think that having an opportunity for cold inbound is a great way. We have actually made investments off of cold inbound that have come in through that form, and we think that's a great way to expand beyond the network, beyond just where the network piece there. I also do open office hours. I love that you do office hours, because it's a great way. Like, that's another thing you can find on the website. Matt, Allison, and I, my partner Matt, and our principal Allison, all three of us do office hours each week, and so founders can come in and find us. And I love a good pitch deck. I really do. Peter, to your point about are you pre-revenue or not, or like just say it. One of my rules that I tell founders, it should be their rule for pitching is, don't make me think, don't make me work. Right? If I have to guess, do you have revenue? If I have to try to dig through your deck to figure out what in the heck your business actually does, right? I'm going to see probably 3,000 startups a year, maybe 1,000 startups a year. Right. And, so the more that you make an investor work for the key information, the harder it is going to be just to get a meeting with that investor. And the purpose of the pitch deck is not to win the investment. The purpose is to just get the meeting. By the way, shameless plug here. I have a podcast called the VC Minute that spun out of the Startup of the Year podcast. It started in 2020, maybe?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah, on the 20 as literally a minute of Rich talking about fundraising on the Startup of the Year podcast. And so the VC Minute has breathed some new life into it. Was grateful to be able to spin it out of Startup of the Year and have it standalone. And so that, episode 27 is Don't Make Me Think, Don't Make Me Work. And it's one of my favorites.
And you heard it here, just things coming out of Startup of the Year left and right every day.
I know. You got incubated my own podcast.
Sweet. Love it.
All right.
So another question for you.
Yeah. It's 2022, the end of the year here.
Yes, it's the end of the year, and it's been quite a year. And this actually builds on something Monique said earlier about flexibility of startups, right?
Yeah.
And coming out of COVID. But, even since 2020 and 2021, we've had a heck of a time. And just in terms of the economy, the way that investment has sort of dried up a bit for many startups.
Yeah. I mean, major inflation, you're hearing the gloom and doom on TV and everything about the economy, layoffs, when you're not hearing about Twitter, I guess, and everything going on with that. You're hearing about the crypto company that imploded, right? That was worth billions. So you're hearing a lot of this stuff. It's dried up a little bit for people. I was out at an event in October, major event in our industry, and 200 companies there, all raising. No one's writing checks. Literally no one. I asked all of them. And so I want to get your take, like, what is going on with capital and where do you see it going as we go into the new year? Obviously, knowing December is kind of a slower time to begin with.
I'm going to jump in and shameless self plug, but I wrote a Q3 market report, which you can get on the Springtime site, analyzing, the effects of the volatility, the effects of what has been out there. And, the data shows that there is a significant slowdown in the pace of investing. And so just taking from the speed at which venture funds were deploying capital previously in 2021 specifically, but really if you start with, say, Q4 2020 and roll that forward, even Q3 2020 and roll that forward for the next 18 months, the speed was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Raise a fund, deploy it in 12 months, raise a fund, deploy it in 18 months, something along those lines. Everybody has pulled back on that. And so that has just led to a significant slowdown in the number of rounds that are getting done. My theory, I call it the hot or not pool party, right? So either you got a hot pool party or your pool party is not hot. And so for founders out there, they're going to look at these rounds and it's like, how did this startup raise $5 million when Hello Helper is looking, everybody here is looking to raise $1 million or less, right? And they're looking at these companies that are raising $5 million, wondering what in the heck is going on over there, right? So either your pool party is hot or it's not. And so we're going to really see this effect, I think, and I think it's going to be even more exacerbated next year with fewer funding rounds getting done with larger numbers in those funding rounds. And unfortunately, it makes it harder for great startups that don't need $5 million to get to the next level.
So what was happening before? More pool parties, more hot people? I don't know. More hot
people were deploying capital much, much faster. And funds would rather be in 35 startups rather than 25 startups and spread that capital around. So you're hitting more parties. With less frequency or with less, with less time or less dollars invested in each of them.
Makes sense. Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? What's going on?
I guess, look, I'll say in terms of like the amount of dry powder out there, there's just like a ton of capital floating around. But to Rich's point, I think the allocation is either being used to invest in other funds or it's being used for more later stage deals where investors maybe feel more safe. So I think if I was a founder, I think as investors, we really take the long-term view. We're looking at 5 to 10 years out. We're not just investing for next year. But if I was a founder, I would just keep increasing sales, keep building, because you want to get through this. Because not to be all doom and gloom, but just based on we're being told and what the market is saying, it's looking to be a pretty potentially rough recession. So I think you really just need to keep building, and the capital will always be there. But I think for right now, it's being allocated a little differently than it was, to Rich's point.
Gotcha.
I think the only thing I would add would be, what we always tell our founders and any founder we talk to is that you're actually building your company for your customer. And that should be done in the most lean, most effective and efficient way, getting to cash flow positive as quickly as possible. Even though we have a fund, there is like some PR moment that happened that everyone just thinks like it's the coolest thing ever to like get the highest valuation and raise the most money. And it's like, actually, that's a horrible method because you need to actually you just can't throw money at a company, right? You actually have to know the business model. You really need to get your customers to pay, and you have to know what you're doing in the most effective way. And so it's like you're building for the customer, not for the investor. And if they wrap their head around that, then they're able to understand that, when you can raise, right? But there's going to be difficulties. And by the way, it's not just the founders, it's us as GPs, it's us as funds, right? Capital's not being deployed right now. And so it's how do we make the most and the best of what it is right now? And how do we get to a safe space? And I think that's for all of us, investors, founders, whatever this community is. But when you're building, you just have to build lean always.
Yeah. It's a great point. And we should look back to history. Back in 2008, some of the most interesting companies did pop out during that time. That was a bit of a similar situation. So keep working on it and keep going forward and obviously be super lean. All right. Great answers there. And I appreciate that. Next up, we got a couple questions looking at this year and then looking to the future. And then we're going to kind of wrap. So what were you most excited about in 2022? And then looking ahead, what's your feeling on 2023? What are you looking ahead towards and excited about? Could be an industry, it could be a trend, it could be anything.
In 2022, I was excited to be able to present a new way of investing, right? Inclusive investing, where everyone was trying to force us to like categorize ourselves since we were two Black female GPs. And it's like, actually, what we're trying to do and what we're being the example of is how investing should have always been done. Right. So being able to have that inclusive conversation and show a data room and prove that you can actually have an inclusive, diverse portfolio of all types of amazing founders instead of just the 97% of traditional founder that keeps getting invested in is just been something I've like really, really been excited about, because I actually do believe in inclusivity internally and externally. And so that's been just something that I've been really happy about. I'm also very, for 2023, I'm excited to kind of take a deeper dive into, we've been so focused on building Rain Ventures that it never dawned on us that as lead investors, and since we're a newer fund, that the growth and late stage investors may not deem us as valuable as an investor as like the top 10 out of Silicon Valley, right? And so I see that as another challenge, and I see that as another great way to kind of extend our network and grow. And so just like founders, we as investors reach all types of adversity too. And so I'm looking forward to kind of solving that problem too.
Love that. Gotcha. All right. Anybody else want to share?
I was going to say in 22, we were most excited for industries that were getting highlighted in the venture world that weren't previously. For example, like trucking and logistics was super hot this year. And I think it was just a nice trend to see industries that don't normally get highlighted in VC get highlighted. So that was something we were very excited for. I think something that we're very excited for the coming year, I think things are going to get a little more focused and lean, meaning like this year, there was a lot of excitement and frankly, a lot of fluff because everyone was raising, everyone was going out, and it was hard to tell what's legit, what's not legit sometimes. And there's just a lot of things happening. And I feel like for the coming year, things are really going to tighten down and the real winners are going to prove themselves. So I think that's something that I'm very excited for.
Yep. Man, those are such great points. I'll share a quick anecdote for 2022. For springtime, we were excited to do our final close, and we thought, the fundraising market was just as hard for us as it was for for founders. We thought we were going to close on somewhere between 27 and 30 million on a $25 million target, and it just evaporated from August to October. Completely evaporated. And
wow.
And so we did end up hitting our target, but it was a stretch. And so as a we've moved from nano to micro fund as a micro fund, right? It's every little bit of that helps and makes a difference in the long run. But yeah, we definitely felt that pretty acutely. And seconding, combining what Peter and Monique had both said about 2023, right, is that first of all, you build this business for your customers and not for venture capital. And that got lost in the last, let's call it 2 years, maybe even longer, right? So getting back to building for your customers, building great businesses, building a business, period, turning it into a great business, and then let venture capital support that along the way if it's a fit. So I'm excited for the focus to become on the customer and the business again.
That was amazing discussion. Really love the conversation because it does hit some of the things we've been hearing about now for the last at least quarter or so in talking to hundreds of startups about capital and what's going on with investment and everything. So for those that are out there raising funds, you heard them, just like agree 100%, like keep going, find your customers and focus on that right now if you're not able to get the checks you're looking for. And I'm sure things will change soon. We did see similar times in 2008, and a lot of great companies were spun out of that. So don't forget that. All right, before we wrap the episode, I wanted to share a few things that are coming up in the new year. We're already at the end of the year. I can't believe it. We're going to be heading out to Las Vegas, where I lived for almost 8 years. And we're going to be going to CES, so the Consumer Electronics Show. And we're going to be working on a couple different things. So startup community, if you're part of the Startup of the Year community and you want to join us, we're going to give you a little cup of Joe or a cup of coffee. If you join us for our special coffee meetup, it's at Off the Strip and you basically can just go sign up in the show notes. There's an Eventbrite link, and you can sign up to be a part of that. You do need to sign up in advance to be a part of that event. There's some capacity issues, so I want to make sure that you sign up in order to get in there, and it'll help us understand who's coming and how big of a venue we need, and if we need to do anything to make sure that there's more space, and if we need to add more coffee. So hopefully you can meet up, and there should be a bunch of other investors and startups there, so it should be a good group from our community. And then also we're going to be there on a couple different other kind of dockets. We've got our partners we're partnered with the Consumer Technology Association Foundation, and we're actually helping produce their pitch competition. The 5th year in a row, there's a pitch event, and there's a lot of great companies involved and a lot of great investors, and it should be a great event. So that's also on the 6th of January. So if you're in the area, if you're planning on being at CES and you like startups, check out the CTAF pitch competition, and that'll be Friday, this January 6th from 2 to 4 p.m. East or Pacific, and you can get a chance to watch that live. And then finally, we're going to be there also for our work with the America's Seed Fund, which is a $4 billion a year fund that's, the American government basically invests in startups through the 11 agencies that are part of America's Seed Fund. So lots of exciting stuff happening there. You want to learn more about it, you can go to americasseedfund.us and look for us actually in Eureka Park as well, because we're going to be doing some different things there, talking about different opportunities for both startups as well as entrepreneurial support organizations. So lots going on in our community, a lot going on at CES, and looking forward to heading back to Las Vegas. I haven't been there in a few years now. It's been a strange couple of years there, but I'm looking forward to getting back. All right. Well, that's the show for today. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. And I can't believe this is probably our last show of the year. So thank you for listening all year if you've been here. Hopefully you found this episode and others helpful. And if you have a startup idea and you want to get it going, today is the best day to start up, not tomorrow, not the next day. Get it going, get it started, and hopefully we can help you by you joining our community. You just go to startupofyear.com and apply, or go to soty.link/apply to go directly to our application and get into our community immediately. There's a lot of resources. There's community, there's other founders, there's investors, there's mentors, there's lots of things that you can get from it as we all try to help you elevate your company. And it's all, free. So I think it's a no-brainer. Just go to soty.link/apply. Until next time, I'm Frank Gruber. Don't forget to hug your loved ones. And I hope you have a wonderful and safe holiday season. And good luck starting up out there.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon.